Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to this video. And in this video I want to talk to you about the LUT export options in fylm.ai. So let's dive right in. So after you've created your color grade, which is what I did here, so this is my original image and this is the color graded image. The next step would be to export this grade as a LUT so that I can use it in different software, for example, Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, or perhaps Adobe Photoshop. Now, depending on my workflow and depending on my color pipeline, and also depending on the software I'll be using, we need to cover the different LUT export options and specifically what happens internally in fylm.ai so that we know what sort or which kind of LUT we want to export. Right, so the export option is very straightforward. We just go here to the download a LUT tab, give our LUT a name and click on export, and we have a LUT. However, if we do that, we might end up with a LUT that doesn't suit our pipeline. So we want to cover the different options and what happens in fylm.ai so that we better understand how to export the correct LUT for our workflow. Okay, so the very first thing that you should understand is that when you load an image in fylm.ai, the very first color operator that's applied on your image is the input transform. The input transform is the first color operator in a line of color operators applied to your image. After the color input, we have the color grade, the creative decisions that you make, which are the tools that you add here. And then at the end of the pipeline, we have the output transform, which takes us to the monitor color space. So let's see what happens when I load a new image, one that I haven't graded before, one that I haven't edited in any sort of way. So the first thing that fylm.ai tells me is to select the input transform. Now, internally, fylm.ai works in the color ACES CCT color space, which means that when I select the input transform, the image is transformed from the original color space to the ACES CCT color space. In this case, this image was shot on the Arri Alexa camera. So what I'll do, I will select the appropriate Arri Alexa log C3 input transform. And now the image has been transformed from Arri Alexa log C3 color space into the ACES CCT color space. And then at the end of our pipeline, we have a display transform out of ACES CCT color space into sRGB, which is the default output transform that fylm.ai uses. However, obviously, you can change that to suit your specific monitor. For example, if you're using a Rec. 709 monitor, that's what you would select here. As a rule of thumb, you do not select the output transform based on whatever it is you think will make the image look best, but rather based on what your current monitor, the monitor that you're working with, is currently set to. Right. So now any color grading tool that I might add to this image, it will be operating in the ACES CCT color space, and it is tailored for the ACES CCT color space. Now let's go back to this image, to the grade which I have created. Again, this is the original image and this is the color grade. So to recap what we learned so far, what we have here is, first of all, we have a transform from Arri Alexa log C color space into ACES CCT. In ACES CCT, we have the AI autocorrect tool applied. We have the neural fylm.ai applied, which is the creative look that makes this color grade which I have created. And then out of ACES CCT color space, we go to sRGB, which is the monitor that I'm currently using. So if I were now to go to the download a LUT tab, well, we see that we have these two toggles here, which are called bake-in ACES input transform and bake-in ACES output transform. Now, these make more sense in context of what we learned so far. So when these two are toggled in, these two color operators, the transform from RealXLogC color space into ACCCT and out of ACCCT to sRGB, will be baked in the LUT. Now, if we give this LUT a name, right, and we export it, we will learn also from the name of the exported LUT what it does and what it expects, the color space that it expects to work in. So if I go over here to the downloads folder where I have this LUT just downloaded, if we examine the name, you can see that it begins by log C3. Then it has the name which we have given to the LUT, and then it has sRGB at the end. So what this means is that this LUT expects log C3 to as a color space as the input. So we need to apply it directly to a log C3 footage. Then obviously we have the look which we have created. In this case, I have called it test, but obviously you would want to give a more meaningful name. And then it outputs sRGB, which means that whatever comes after the LUT in the pipeline, so if you were, for example, to apply this LUT as the very first step in your workflow, whatever comes after the LUT will be in the sRGB color space. And also whatever, and also we need to know that we should apply this LUT directly to the log C3 footage, otherwise the result might not be as we wanted or as we expect it to look. So let me just delete this one. Let's go back to fylm.ai and let's see what happens if I disable both of these. Again, give my LUT a name and export the LUT from fylm.ai. So now if we go over to our downloads folder and we examine this LUT, we see that it expects the ACES CCT color space and it outputs ACES CCT. And that's because we decided that we don't want the input transform and we don't want the output transform in our LUT. Therefore, what we have is only the color grade. So just these two tools, these tools will be in our LUT, and that's the content of our LUT. When would you use such a LUT? You would use such a LUT if you're working in a color managed environment in a software, for example, such as DaVinci Resolve, and you have set your color management to ACES CCT, just like as it is in fylm.ai. In this case, the input and output transforms would be handled by the color management system in DaVinci Resolve, and you would only need the creative grade or just the look of the LUT without the input transforms. Going back to this LUT, which has input and output transforms, typically you would use such a LUT in non-color managed environment when you want to go from the log image to a graded result and a normalized image, so one that's ready to be exported in just one click, in just one LUT. And also, obviously, since you usually wouldn't want to make any color grades after that kind of LUT, after that sort of LUT, because if you remember, after that sort of LUT, we are no longer in the log space, we are in sRGB. You would want to make any corrections or make any changes before that LUT is applied. Now, from here, we can draw a conclusion that obviously if we disable just one of these toggles, then we will get a LUT which has the other one included and the other one excluded. In this case, it would have the log C3 transform here, and however, the LUT would stay in ACES CCT. So for example, if we were just to export this LUT again, and then let's go to the downloads folder to examine what we have. So here we have a LUT which expects a log C3 input, and it outputs an ACES CCT color space. Now from here we can also draw another conclusion, and that is, let me just remove these. Let's go back to fylm.ai and let me load this image right here. Okay, let me remove the AI autocorrect which I've added. So right now what we have here is just the image with the input and output transforms applied to it, but we don't have any color grading tools, which means that nothing happens between the input and output, and the only thing that effectively we have now in our grid is the input and the output. So if I were to now go to the Download a LUT tab and just include the input, since we don't have any creative decisions in here and we export this LUT, this will effectively be a LUT which transforms the image from the log C3 into ACES CCT and nothing else. So this would be a technical LUT, which you could use as a sort of color transform, as a sort of conversion LUT, which would go from ARRI log C3 into ACES CCT, or if we were to include just the output and then export this, we would have a LUT which effectively goes from ACES CCT to Rec 709. So this way you could also create technical LUTs, but obviously in order for this to work, what you would have to make sure is that you don't have any creative decisions here, that you don't have any color grading tools. Now, let's go back to this image. And we have mentioned briefly that if we export a LUT without the input and output transforms, that's a LUT that expects ACES CCT, which is the internal color space in which fylm.ai works, and it outputs ACES CCT, which is the, again, the internal color space in which fylm.ai works. However, and we would use this sort of LUT in a color managed framework such as ACES CCT in DaVinci Resolve. However, a very popular choice among colorists and filmmakers which work in a color managed environment in DaVinci Resolve is also called a color management system called DaVinci Color Managed. So in order to export a LUT for that framework, after we've created our LUT, right? So this is the LUT that we have. What we want to do is we click on the additional download options. We toggle the download DaVinci wide gamut LUT option here, and then the fylm.ai will make the necessary mathematical transforms for this look to go to work seamlessly in DaVinci wide gamut workflow. So if I were now to export this LUT, and then let's just jump over to the downloads folder, you can see that now we have a LUT which expects DaVinci wide gamut. It has obviously our look and it outputs DaVinci wide gamut. So this makes it a perfect LUT to work in color managed environment, in DaVinci color managed environment. Right. You will also notice that when I toggle any one of these additional download options, these two toggles, the bake-in and input and output transforms, they effectively become grayed out because they are irrelevant in this case. Just toggling one of these options here creates the necessary mathematical transforms for this look to work in the other color spaces and the other color grading options that we have here. So in a similar way that we can create the DaVinci wide gamut LUT, we can also create a LUT which would be tailored for the red wide gamut color space. So this would be a LUT which you would typically load in a red camera. We can also download a LUT for the Panasonic camera in a VLT format so that you can load it in a Panasonic camera. And also you can create an ARRI log C4 LUT which would accept as input the ARRI log C4 and output ARRI log C4, and that would be a LUT which you would then convert using the ARRI reference tool to a logs a log C format for the ARRI Alexa 35 camera. Now, if you want to create a LUT which you would load in ARRI Alexa, the non-35 version, so the one that uses the log C3, the way you would do that is you would select ARRI Alexa log C3 as the input, you would select Rec 709 as the output, and then you would make sure that the bake-in input and output transforms is selected. And now when you export a LUT, you will get a LUT which accepts log C3 as its input, and it outputs Rec 709, which is exactly the sort of LUT that you need in order to convert it with the RE reference tool to the AML format so that it can be used in the regular RE Alexa cameras, for example, the Alexa Mini and not the Alexa 35. Right. Now, if you have been following so far, you might have come to the conclusion that in this way you can also tailor this specific look, this specific grade, which I have created for other cameras as well. And the way that you would do it is you would simply change the input transform and then re-export the LUT. So let's say that we have shot this footage here with two cameras. We have the Arri Alexa, which is the A cam, and we have, let's say, a Sony FX3, which was the B cam that was shooting, let's say, a wider scene of this image. So once we've created this grade, and we use the Arri Alexa camera to create this grade, right? Because this is an image coming from the Arri Alexa camera, we do not have to load the Sony image and then recreate our grade. All we have to do is we simply go here to the input transform menu, we select the appropriate slog3 option, and then we just make sure that the input and output transforms are selected, and we re-export our LUT. So if we do that, we will get a LUT which expects slog3 sgamut3 cine, applies the creative look, obviously, and it outputs a Rec 709. So this option is very useful if you're adapting an existing look and you want it to work in the same way with other cameras, whichever camera that might be, or even if you're creating your own LUT packs that you're distributing in some sort of way. That's a nice way to use one particular image or a set of images that you have that come from a certain camera. But then once you've created these grades, then you can easily make LUTs or LUT packs, which will work with other cameras simply by changing the input transform here. So for example, if I want to make this look work with the Blackmagic Design Gen 5, that's what I select as the input transform, and then I export my LUT, and now I have a LUT which accepts the BMD Gen 5 as the input, applies the color grade, and outputs a Rec 709 image. So that's a very useful way to adapt these looks. Okay, so we've covered most options for let's say filmmakers or for video applications, but what about the still photographers? So for still photographers, there are a few things that we should understand. So first of all, before I load a still image, let me just quickly save this look as a candidate so that I can copy it over to the still image, right? So I'll open up this image, and this is a JPEG image in sRGB color space, and therefore this is exactly what I'm going to select. So sRGB in, sRGB out. And now let me just grab this grade over and copy it here and apply it to my image. Let me just make an adjustment so that it works more correctly with this image. So something like that. Right. Okay. So now that I have created this image or this look, and let's say that I want to use it in Photoshop on TIFF, PNG, JPEG images, all I have to do is I go to the Download a LUT tab, make sure that the input and output are selected, because typically in Photoshop you will not have a support for color managed frameworks in a way that they work or in a way that you might be familiar from, let's say, DaVinci Resolve. So we want the color management journey, the entire color journey that this image goes through, we want to have that included in the LUT. and therefore we want to make sure that the input and output are baked in our LUT, and then we just simply export our LUT. And since we used the sRGB and sRGB as input and output transforms, if we now examine the LUT that we have, we can see that it's a LUT which accepts or works with sRGB images, and it also outputs an sRGB out. So that would be the sort of a LUT we would use for still photos. Now, there is one difference that you should note here, and that is what happens if I load a raw image in fylm.ai and I create my grade on a raw image. So let's just do that. So this was a JPEG image. Now this here is a raw image, and I will load it. By default, by the way, fylm.ai reads the built-in JPEG preview of the raw image, and this image was shot with the black and white image style, and that's why it appears as black and white. In order to develop the actual raw file, we'll just toggle on the develop toggle here, and now the image has been debayered and developed, and now we're working with the raw data from the image. Now I'll just again copy over the grade which I have created previously. Again, let me just make a slight adjustment. So something like that. Okay, so now I have this grade which I want to export and use in Photoshop. Now what you will notice here is, first of all, I have not selected the input transform by myself. fylm.ai has done that for me, and that's because when you are loading a raw file in fylm.ai, fylm.ai will automatically apply the necessary input and output transforms to the raw file, because fylm.ai knows which color space or what type of an image that is from the raw data that it reads. And now, since we have developed this file, since we have debayered the raw data, you will notice that fylm.ai has automatically selected for me the ACES 20651 color space, which is a super large linear color space, which is the color space into which fylm.ai debayers or develops the raw files, so that it works in the largest and best possible container, so that you have the most amount of room for color editing when you're working with the raw data. The thing is, though, if I go here now to the download a LUT option, and I export this as a LUT, and then again let's jump over to the downloads folder, you will notice that now our LUT expects an ACES 2651 linear image, and it outputs sRGB. Now if we were to apply this LUT to a normal sRGB or Adobe RGB image in Photoshop, it would look totally off. So if you have created your grade using a raw file in fylm.ai, before exporting your LUT, you want to change the input to sRGB. Now, before I do that, the image will look, I just want to tell you that the image will look in fylm.ai completely off, because this is, remember, this is the raw data, and it is in a linear color space, the ACES 20651 color space. And now if I just change the input to sRGB, the look will drastically change, and the image no longer looks correct. But that's fine, because I'm changing the input just for the purpose of exporting this look. So now if I export this look, right, I will get a LUT which expects sRGB, and it outputs RGB, and it will work correctly with sRGB images in Photoshop. Now, if I want to make further adjustments or further color grades, I will go back to the ACES 206.5 so that I see my work correctly, so that I can edit the look correctly. And then once I'm ready to export the LUT, I can definitely change this to whatever it is that I want. The same concept as we previously covered when adapting a LUT to a different camera, for example, from log C3 to Sony S-Log3. So the same concept works here. The fact that we have developed this LUT or this look on a linear image in ACES 2065 color space does not prevent us from exporting this LUT for other color spaces, for example, the ACES 2065 or perhaps the Adobe RGB or perhaps even the ProPhoto RGB. So that's that. I hope this video has been helpful. And should you have any questions, obviously, feel free to reach out. You can write to our support or you can leave a comment here in the video. To learn more about fylm.ai, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, keep creating cool stuff.